This is Mark Valley. I've got a new podcast called The Live Drop, where I visit the world of intelligence, espionage, surveillance, secrets, tradecraft. I'll talk with spies about their stories of international intrigue. Sometimes I'll even talk with the actors who played them as well. Check it out at markvalley.com. It's The Live Drop.
Welcome to Lakers Reign, the podcast of the Los Angeles Lakers.
I feel like I'm on the ball today. I even felt accepted from the law today. It's like this revelation dawned on me. It's so amazing, help support the cause. I get everyone involved.
Get access behind the purple curtain for an exclusive look into the championship pedigree of Los Angeles, the lifestyle, the music, the vibe. Here's your host, Nick Hamilton.
Single shot of whiskey, can make it double. All my people with me always making trouble.
Ladies and gents, welcome to another edition of Lakers Reign podcast. We make it rain purple and gold. I'm your host, Nick Hamilton here. Hit me up on Twitter at Nick Hamilton LA. First of all, congratulations out to Lonzo Ball, who completed his second triple-double. He had 11, 16, and 11. And to me, the triple-double, I don't take away any of his accomplishments. Again, I'll say this one more time. I think the kid is talented. The thing that really stood out to me about his triple-double was the 16 rebounds. Now, he's had 2 triple-doubles thus far. I know it's still early in the season. But when I look at his triple-doubles, I look at him against the teams he's played against. And the other night, he played against the Denver Nuggets with no Paul Millsap and a couple other players who weren't available to play against the Lakers at full strength. So I kind of have to evaluate that triple-double in a form of which it's a good thing stat-wise, but how legitimate is it really? Because when I look at this, I look at teams like Golden State. I look at teams like Houston. I look at teams like the Spurs, the OKC Thunder, the Boston Celtics, the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Washington Wizards. And I look at those kinds of teams, and I say to myself, should he score a triple-double against those teams? And that's the remaining question that we have yet to see. Like I said, Lonzo can push the ball, not taking anything away from his triple-doubles. I just have to question how he went about getting his triple-double against a team that seems to be somewhat inferior. No, before I get all the Laker hate and say I'm hating on Lonzo, no, I'm not. I'm just saying that you're playing against a team that's inferior, like the Denver Nuggets. You're not playing against elite competition. And beyond the teams that I've named, that's when I want to see a triple-double. That's when I'll take a triple-double like that a lot more seriously than what I do against teams like the Denver Nuggets. Those are games that you should be able to win. You have a much better squad on the floor. Your defense is impeccable. And by the numbers, they have one of the top-notch defenses in the league. And that's remarkable for a young squad like that, especially without Larry Nance Jr., who was recently cleared to practice, coming back from a broken hand. That's remarkable. And I know when Larry Nance Jr. gets back to full strength, that defense is going to be something spectacular. But then when I look at certain things, I just look at it from a simple standpoint of, could this be a team that has a better defense than offense? And do we have to, quote, trust the process? We have too many high expectations as Laker fans right now. I think there's a wait-and-see approach to this team. This is a young team. And so when I look at that type of situation, the Lakers are all about the long-term process. The Lakers are all about trying to get guys involved. The Lakers are all about trying to develop Lonzo slowly because they're looking at the bigger picture. But we have to look at the fact that this is a team that is in transition to go upward. And when you try to go upward, that's the problem that you have. You're going to got fans that say, oh, man, they need to win more. You're going to get LeVar Ball saying how Luke Walton is too soft on this kid and he needs to come harder and enough with the moral victories. And there's nothing wrong with what LeVar Ball has said because that's what fans are echoing pretty much all over L.A. So LeVar Ball is only using the platform that he has to echo what a lot of fans have been feeling or saying behind closed doors. He has a point. They do need to be tougher on Lonzo Ball. I think they need to be tougher on a lot of other players in that regime, because that's the only way they're going to grow. That's the only way they're going to develop and become a better unit. That's why I have it with the Lakers and Lakerland. When I look at the defense has been absolutely remarkable. They can only get better as long as they stay healthy. I know Luke Walton is trying to be Mr. Positive and trying to keep everything intact, but sometimes you have to be a little bit more critical than what you have been. I like the fact that Luke is bringing guys along slowly. I like the fact that Luke is trying to put everything in perspective and saying, hey, the sky's not falling, but yeah, we're not doing that great either. So he's trying to keep that even keel, that even balance. There are things that have really, man, take your time. It's an 82-game season. We're going to have to go through, as I said early on in podcasts before, you have to go through peaks and valleys, and we're going to have some highs and we're going to have some lows. The highs being Lonzo getting triple doubles. The lows going to be the actual losses and how much they lose by. So it's all a process. Relax. It's not that big of a deal. Everybody was going bananas when, Lonzo scored a triple double. Relax. It's going to be something where we just have to wait it out and just do what we need to do as fans and support the team, rally around the team, and do what you need to do to make sure that we're taking steps forward and not backwards. Plain and simple. Now I want to throw it to my man, Pete Turner, to sit down and talk with Orange County Register reporter Bill Oram. You can find him on Twitter at Bill_Oram. So check out this interview. A lot of insight, a lot of wisdom, a lot of information on the LA Lakers.
Hey, thanks, Nick. Hey, today I'm presenting a conversation that I'm having with Bill Oram. He is, if you don't know already, he covers the Lakers for the Orange County Register, a paper that's local to me. I'm about a mile away from the headquarters. And so, Bill, I appreciate you coming on. I know you just got done with shoot around, and I had a couple questions for you. The main thing is what do you think so far? Young team, kind of figuring it out. What do you see?
Well, I think that this is more or less where we thought the Lakers were going to be. Lonzo Ball has struggled a little more than we expected, and Kyle Kuzma has been a lot better than we expected. But in terms of wins and losses, I don't think we thought this was going to be a 500 team. As we speak, they're 7-10. They were 10-10 last year in kind of a fluky start to the season. I think they're a better team than they were a year ago. They've kind of blown everyone away with how good they've been defensively, and kind of the offense has been the part that's been struggling to keep up. But I mean, they're the fourth best team in defense, and I think that's going to change. I think you're going to see them drop, but no matter kind of what happens, I think that they look like they're probably going to be a top half defensive team this season, which compared to where they've been the last 4 years, which was kind of between 28th and 30th every year, is a tremendous jump, and I think a credit to what the Lakers are doing, in practice and with the coaching staff. I don't think that you would say that the addition of Kentavious Caldwell-Pope on his own is the difference there. I mean, they do have better defensive personnel, but this is not strictly personnel based. I don't think. I think that this is a mindset and kind of an attitude adjustment that Luke Walton has been able to kind of instill in his team, and I think that's probably the biggest thing. But then obviously the emergence of Kyle Kuzma has been just, totally unexpected and wonderful, really. It's been a great story to cover, and, he's bringing something every night that's entertaining and fun and bodes well for the future.
He seems to be playing within himself too. This isn't, somebody jumping out to a big start. This looks like a normal level of play.
Yeah, it's funny, he shot the ball so well in the preseason, and a few Lakers coaches told me that they figured that he would cool off at some point and he would come back to earth. And if you look at his three-point numbers, he's really only shooting about 30% from three. So he's not setting the world on fire from out there, but he's shooting it well enough to keep his game, to open up his game and to open up the drives for him, which is obviously kind of where he's had the most success, getting into the paint and then throwing up that sky hook or the those little flip shots that Om Youngmasuk from ESPN and I have talked about, and he likes to point out that it's very Worthy-esque, and I think that's true. I mean, the way he finishes around the rim does evoke images of James Worthy, which obviously Lakers fans have to love.
Yeah, well, of course we love seeing and hearing that comparison. That's great. Even if it was the Tizzy flip from Wayman Tisdale back in the old days.
Yeah, exactly.
That guy made a lot of money scoring 20-plus points a game. We'd take that too. Mm-hmm. There isn't a guy right now scoring 20-plus points a game on this team. Can they continue to evolve if someone doesn't step up and grab those points?
There's a couple of things. They are not scoring enough points to become a playoff team right now. I mean, if they want somehow sneak into the 8th seed, which I think is really unlikely and should not be the focus at all, and I don't think it is. But they would need to figure some things out offensively, and probably somebody would need to take a big step. But for where they are right now, I mean, I think that they have enough guys who can score, and that from night to night they're getting contributions from across the board. You know, Brandon Ingram is giving you, I think he's at 14 a night. Kuzma's giving you 15. Jordan Clarkson's giving you 15, and so is Brook Lopez. So, I mean, there's a lot of balanced scoring, and that doesn't even take into consideration the nights Julius Randle has, or Kentavious Caldwell-Pope when he's able to shoot it. So I think that there's enough guys who do score to get by for the season, but ultimately, I mean, eventually the Lakers are going to need a go-to scorer, and we really haven't seen who that guy like late in games is. If you go back to the overtime game early in the year, was that against Washington when Brandon Ingram took the big shot down the stretch and drove? It was Washington, because he drove past Kelly Oubre. I think we know that Brandon Ingram is the guy who should be scoring the points, at least down the road. But for now, I think they're content to let it be a group effort.
This is a complicated question, but do you feel like the team needs to not sacrifice wins, because obviously you want to go for the win, but do they need to continue to create situations to develop the young guys to see who can step up? Because we know we don't have a closer. There isn't a guy that you say, it's not anyone yet. It's not Ingram, it's not Ball, it's not Kuzma. Do you look for these situations and create the pressure on the players at the expense of wins? Sort of like what the Dodgers did. They had their long cold streak, and yes, part of that was them due to them being cold, but part of it was saying, "Here, Baez, here's the ball." What do you think? Is there a compromise that has to happen to develop this team properly?
Well, I don't know so much that they're sacrificing wins, but Luke Walton has definitely said repeatedly that their focus is not on going out and accumulating as many wins as they can at all costs. The most important thing for them in the way they've kind of approached this project is being good in the forthcoming years. It's establishing an identity. So I do think that they want to create those scenarios where late in games you're putting the ball in the hands of Lonzo Ball and Brandon Ingram. Now with Lonzo, it's been a little bit different because we've seen games where he hasn't been in the game, especially that Phoenix game on the road. I think that was kind of a peculiar one, but I think also that was a game that the Lakers really, really wanted to win. And Luke made it clear that at the end of a road trip where they had struggled and lost 3 games that were not great losses, it was important to win that game. And so that's why you saw Corey Brewer and Jordan Clarkson and those guys on the floor at the end of the game, because they were playing well and Lonzo was not. But I do think that as the season plays out, you're going to see young guys being put in scenarios that if you were strictly trying to go out there and win the game, they may not be in. I mean, you might be putting the ball in Brook Lopez's hands or trying to get it to Brook in the paint, but instead you let Lonzo go out and create and kind of make that decision for himself.
This team is going to surge and fall back. And when we look at the numbers, it is very early. But we look at the numbers, we see a team that has just a 2-point per game deficit between points allowed and points scored. And yeah, if Ball is able to find his stroke that we believe that he has, there's 3 points, there's 6 points, heck, there's 8 points potentially there. Not that this is that team, not that the numbers directly do this, but we are seeing a team that can contain other teams, at least at a certain level. I mean, you're not going to look. Boston's got 8 of the top 10 defenders in the league, depending on what stat you're looking at. So you're not going to necessarily do that against the elite teams, but the basis is there. And I wonder what you think about this. When I look at Lonzo Ball and how he's performing, triple doubles, yes, it's early, yes, they're against lower teams, but the list of people to get to the top 20 all time for triple doubles, he needs about 19 more, and all of a sudden he's like one of the greatest ever at doing this. So that portends well. And then the scoring part, we've seen him shoot before. We know he can do that, but this rebounding, transferring immediately, that impacts the game in a way that is very tough to coach, if not impossible to develop in a point guard. Jason Kidd is probably another example. Westbrook is another example. These guys were fantastic point guards, partly because they could create off of the rebound. What are your thoughts on bringing that skill at least as a key to his further success?
Yeah, I think it's a real underrated part of his game, or at least it was until he had the 16 rebound game, because we think about the assists and the scoring. But for him, especially, it seems like the ability to go get rebounds, you're right in that it's very difficult to coach because that's such a mentality thing. It's like there are a lot of guys who just don't see that as their job from the point guard position. And Lonzo loves going and getting offensive boards and really, creating off the rebound, like you said. And for him, he said it takes 2 or 3 seconds off the fast break. So it's like you're getting up the floor 2 or 3 seconds faster than you were if Andrew Bogut gets the rebound and he has to pivot and look for Lonzo and give him the little outlet. Lonzo can just get it and go. And so that's something that the Lakers are really trying to capitalize on. And I think with rebounding, we oftentimes think that they're just a natural byproduct of being on the floor and being aggressive, and it's not something you work on. But the Lakers have really, really, really made this a point of emphasis with him and said, hey, like if your shot's not going, get yourself going in other ways. And for him, that is crashing the boards, especially defensively. There's no reason for him not to, be getting in there and trying to get rebounds. Offensively, there's a little bit they're giving up potentially in transition defense, but Luke has said that it's such a skill and mentality that Lonzo has. They've given him the freedom to kind of determine when he can crash because it's not something many point guards can do. I can't remember the exact numbers, but I looked it up yesterday. He's third among point guards in rebounding, behind Ben Simmons and Russell Westbrook. I mean, that's elite company. I know that Ben Simmons is technically also a rookie, but he's obviously skilled beyond his years and certainly further along in his NBA development than even Lonzo is. So to be one of the 3 best rebounding point guards already and doing something at your position that 27 other starting point guards in the NBA are not doing, I think is something that fans should be excited about. And when people like me write about how bad the shooting has been, which by the way has been atrocious, I think that's something that you can point to and say, but he's impacting the game in other ways and he's making his team better, and he is has a winning mentality. I mean, that's wanting to go get rebounds it can be a showy thing, if you're really thirsty for stats. But with Lonzo, I don't think it is, and I think it's much less so than guys. Being aggressive on the glass does not have the same potential negative ramifications as forcing shots or forcing passes, trying to get empty assists. Like, it is a selfless skill to develop, and I think it's really been a bright spot for the Lakers as they try to figure out what exactly they have in this kid, because they know they like him, they know they believe in him, but they aren't yet entirely sure what he's going to be for them. And I think that that's something that is going to be sustainable throughout his career, that you have a guy who loves to rebound and can do it at an elite level.
Yeah, that ability to rebound, it does a lot of things, and it also forces the league to adjust. And this is part of that surging and the ebbing and flowing of the game that's going to happen. The league, if the Lakers continue to play at this, I'll call it, at least right now, and again very early, at this possibly, look, they're in second place. You have to laugh about, but the league is going to adjust. They're not just going to allow him to go grab easy boards. They're going to put a body, there's film. How do you see the league adjusting to this team that plays defense well, that should be getting out in transition as often as possible? And that's what Lucas said he wants these guys to do. How are they going to adjust if the Lakers do continue to improve in these areas?
Well, it's teams are going to certainly have to start taking them more seriously, and that's what Luke has said he wants, is teams to know that it's like, hey, you've got the Lakers tonight. It's not an easy out. It's they're going to compete, they're going to make things difficult, and that they're going to take the game seriously. We've seen it before where teams come through LA, they know they have the Lakers on, let's say, a Sunday, and on Saturday night they are out on the town and don't take it as seriously, and it shows, and the Lakers are able to sneak up and steal a win on Sunday night, let's say. And that's something that perhaps teams are not going to be able to get away with as much as they have in the past. And that's a credit to what they're doing. Now, the fact the Lakers are going to be out in transition a lot, I think is going to scare teams off the offensive glass and will create even more rebounding opportunities for Lonzo and everyone else. But I think it will take a little time for the league to adjust to the fact that the Lakers are actually doing things they haven't done before. There's kind of a built-in scouting report on the Lakers, which is that they don't defend and that you can get out and run on them. And so far, the Lakers have struggled a little bit with their transition defense. That's been the one criticism of their defense. But on the whole, they're bringing it defensively and creating problems for teams. And that's something they have not done for as long as I've covered them, which is since the second D'Antoni era.
Yeah. No, that's a critical thing. And talking about that passing and getting out in transition, that is such an important facet to their game, especially because, look, if Lonzo is able to run the offense from the rebound, we already believe in his passing game. And that does create easy buckets, and it does force teams to adjust and maybe have a guy further back, and maybe that opens up the middle for guys like Randall and for Lopez, who maybe do get an extra board or they get an extra tip, or it's just those little differences. And again, we're talking about a team that is emerging, but still already almost at a break-even point with their points per game allowed versus what they score. So these are positive notes to take away from. When we get Larry Nance Jr. back, again, you have another guy that's an impactful on the court leader. Who else do you have your eye on? Obviously, we're looking at Kuzma and Ball and trying to see what they're going to contribute, but who else are you waiting to see that maybe you haven't seen enough, or they've got your attention because they're either performing better than you thought or maybe not up to par?
Well, I think one big question I have is kind of what's going on with Ivica Zubac. This is a guy who was the starting center at the end of last year. I think everyone thought he was going to have a big role this year, and the Lakers have basically decided to give those minutes to Julius Randle and even Andrew Bogut. So Zubac is now down in the D-League. I mean, we've barely seen him. In fact, I can't even recall if we've seen him in a regular season game. I assume we have, but I cannot specifically recall it. And I think that was not something we anticipated. I remember at the end of last season doing an episode of Access Sportsnet with on Spectrum and discussing whether or not Zubac would be the starter this year. Now, granted, we thought he'd be competing against Timofey Mozgov at the time, but I think we just all imagined he was going to have a bigger role. So the question is he simply shut out because there are more veteran guys ahead of him and he doesn't have the defensive presence and the ability to create of Andrew Bogut? And if so, okay, that's something you can be patient with. Or do they really think that he has not progressed as much as he should have since his rookie year and that they don't think he's good enough to put on the floor? If that's the case, that's unfortunate because of what we saw from him last year. Then I think the other question I have has less to do with how these guys perform and how the Lakers end up using them, which is to say, with Jordan Clarkson and Julius Randle, are they even going to be here at the end of the year? The Lakers have made no bones about their interest in clearing as much cap space as possible to go after multiple free agents. The amount of money they have to clear is kind of insane. They have to get down to like $30 million in salary to be able to sign two max guys. And so to do that, you're going to that's probably going to mean saying goodbye to Randall and probably means trading Clarkson at some point. And you can do all that in the summer, but I'm wondering if the Lakers, what the Lakers are going to end up doing, whether they end up trying to cut bait before the trade deadline. I think it could end up being a very bloody season for them in that sense, and through no fault of anyone doing. It's not Julius's fault. He's playing some of the best basketball of his career right now, which frankly works to the Lakers' favor, because they are not really going to be able to bring him back unless something changes dramatically. So I'm kind of watching that and seeing how the Lakers end up, handling it. I think a subplot to that on the Clarkson front, for as good as he's been, is do they see Josh Hart as someone who could step in and handle those minutes and carry that role going forward if they do end up moving him mid-season? Josh Hart was really good at the beginning of the year, and then they decided that they needed more of an offensive presence than a defensive presence. So we saw Vander Blue, but I do think that what the Lakers end up doing with the roster to clear the room that they need to clear to make the pitches that they want to make in the summer is a really key subplot to this season.
Yeah, there's going to have to be something, either a lot more tolerance towards the future, and that means a lot more losses to accumulate the picks, or you have to do some letting and get some of the players out that are going to pan out for other teams, and that is a tough and frustrating thing. But to get over that gap of being a low level playoff team, especially with the strength of the Western Conference right now, something has to change. And I think, what do you think? LA feels like a kind of town where we'd rather bring in a couple of big name guys and augment. I guess that's part of my question. And then does Magic and Rob Pelinka, do they try to build a team around that concept where we're going to have these two powerhouse guys, have Ball throwing the ball in, and then we need to build some specific role players to do certain things?
Yeah, I think that's the plan. Is you want to build around Brandon Ingram and Lonzo Ball, but you're saving room for the guys that you have targeted, which are Paul George and LeBron James. Now, the interesting thing is that Paul George, LeBron James basically all play the same position as Brandon Ingram and Kyle Kuzma,
Right.
but I think that's a short-term problem. And frankly, I would trust Luke Walton to figure out how to make that work with, Brandon Ingram at the 2, Paul George at the 4, and LeBron as your starting center or something. Who cares? I mean, I think there's a way to make it actually work, but I think the Lakers have been very direct and very forthcoming about the fact that they view this as a let's go get, let's bring outside players in to make this a contending team as fast as possible. Now, when they've done that in the past, we saw that did not work out so well with the Steve Nash, Dwight Howard team, but and we also know that things can go sideways when you have the best intentions in free agency. The Lakers have been shut out of meetings with guys they wanted in the past. I don't think that will happen because of the cachet Magic Johnson holds, but there really isn't. Their strategy is not that much different than what Jim Buss and Mitch Kupchak were offering, which was clear cap room and go spend money. The problem was Jim and Mitch were under a manufactured timeline that caused them to panic and do stupid things like sign Luol Deng and Timofey Mozgov.
Sure.
But other than that, I mean, there's really not a difference in the strategy. It's the smart strategy, because the Lakers have never shown any interest in going the Philly route and waiting 5-6 years on their young players. Of course, the irony is that if they had done that from the beginning,
we'd be there.
and perhaps avoided the Kobe extension, they might be there already.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the curse for having an itchy trigger finger.
Final question for you: at the end of the year, who's got the better record, Clippers or Lakers?
That's an interesting question, because I don't know who will be employed by the Clippers by the end of the year. I don't know if Doc Rivers is going to survive this. I don't know. The Danilo Gallinari contract is not looking like a good one in hindsight. You spent a lot of money on a couple of front court guys to be a pretty bad team. So I don't know what route the Clippers will go. I think it makes some sense for them to try to trade DeAndre Jordan mid-season, which would obviously affect their win total, presumably for the negative, but maybe not. I think that you're looking at I'll just say this. I think you're looking at two teams that are well out of the playoffs. I don't know. I mean, if the Lakers have more wins, it won't be by a whole lot, and vice versa. I think it's the same. I think I would much rather be in the Lakers' shoes, though, right
Fair
now,
enough.
where you have a young team with cap space that is on the way up, while the Clippers overspent to remain in the middle, and so far that is not working out.
Hey, man, I asked you for 20 minutes. You gave it to me. I really appreciate you coming on Lakers Reign with us. We'd love to have you back. But thank you so much for your insight. It's just fantastic to be able to grab these interviews with you guys that are experts, and I really appreciate your time.
Hey, anytime, Pete. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Lakers Reign. I hope you enjoyed that great interview. Thanks again to our guest, Bill Oram from the Orange County Register. Great columnist. Love his work. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at Bill_Oram, O-R-A-M, last name. Well, that's all the time we have for Lakers Reign this week. Thank you so much. Hit us up at Lakers Reign Pod. Make sure you hit us up on Instagram at Lakers Reign Pod. And make sure you always make it rain with the purple and gold everywhere you go. I'm your host, Nick Hamilton. Until next time, be safe and make it count.
I feel
You've been listening to Lakers Reign. Thanks to the Los Angeles Lakers. Executive producer Pete Turner. Producer John Leon Guerrero. Musical director DJ Severe. And your host, Nick Hamilton. Intro track On the Ball by Bryce Vine. We'll see you next time on Lakers Reign.